Well, thank you, Maurice and Cedric, for joining us. First of all, please thank them. They are sponsoring this conference, so they were going to be responsible for the AI IPA we're going to drink later. So thank you very much for sponsoring today. So this is about the future of AI. Whose future is it? But let's start with you guys explaining who you are and what the kind of current state of the world is as you see it, and what you guys are up to. Maurice.
Good afternoon. My name is Maurice Chang. I am an AI architect. For the last 2.5 years, I have been helping the Financial Services Regulatory Authority to lead their AI transformation. I've been helping them architect, develop, and implement regulatory and compliance AI technology, and I've been using Dataiku every day of my working day over the last 3-4 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Cedric Paya. I'm the COO of the Airline Pilot Club. I'm actually an airline pilot, nothing to do with data until about 6 months ago, where we decided to actually use Dataiku to implement training programs and help us analyzing training data in different airlines that we work for. So that's it.
So this is about the future of AI. Let's talk about, Maurice, you've written about the future of work. Cedric, you've talked about with your initiative the future of pilots and training pilots and making that safer and more efficient. Let's start with you, Cedric. Can you talk about how what it is you do with airline pilots and how you're thinking about using AI to transform that education and really hiring and the staffing decisions that airlines make?
So I think the first things to notice with airline pilots is we sit at the front of the plane and we don't see any of you guys, but you don't see us as well. And it's very interesting when we come out of the cockpit, everybody asks, oh yeah, you guys, you don't fly their plane now. It's all AI and autopilots, and to some extent, it's fairly true. The bigger they are, the easier they are to fly. But behind this is a long training exercise that goes on, about 18 months of training from zero to commercial pilot, and then after that, every 6 months you go back into the simulator, and you're being tested hard on competencies, 9 competencies. Each of those competencies have 10 observable behaviors. Each of the observable behaviors has about another 10 probably parameters that instructors pick on you quite aggressively. And if you're not good at it, well, your license can go off and you're on the ground. So it's pretty significant for those. And then on the other side, what we have is we have the safety of our passengers at hand. So the two combined together put a lot of stress on training department. And just to give you an idea, a training department is Ryanair, for example, in Europe, it's 6,000 pilots. It's pretty much about simulators run over there 23 hours out of 24 hours just to maintain just the competencies. So it's a big operation. It's a significant operation. It counts for about 15% of the cost of an airline, 10 to 15% depending on what airline it is. And every improvement that you make is very important. Even the efficiencies that you do, every gain that you can get is very important. So and then on the other side as well, we're mixing pilots. You've all heard during the winter here in particular, lack of pilots, flight cancellation, things like this. It's because we don't have enough pilots. 675,000 pilots needs to be trained between now and 2024, I think. So the regulator has come up with an idea with a new training program, which is called evidence-based training and competency-based training and assessment. And everything combined together, we are forced to actually come up with new training program. And that's what this technology is all about, is to actually take the information that the instructor look at during a simulation, during a flight, during a training event, and analyze that information to give strengths and weaknesses of the pilot and areas of improvement, so the pilot can actually go, study his weaknesses, come back into the simulator and be better at what it is. And then we're talking about competencies. I'll spare you the detail, but you're talking about landing an airplane. Hopefully we know how to do this, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But there's competencies like communication, situational awareness, leadership and teamwork, pilot decision-making and process like this. So those competencies are extremely difficult to track, extremely difficult to analyze for instructors, for pilots, and for training department as a whole. That's what basically this tool that we have developed thanks to Digital Shift is allowing to do this at scale.
Yeah, so Maurice, you guys are partners as well as co-sponsors here. So you work together to build this system. So what do you see? Maybe comment about that too, about where you see AI applying to that kind of a use case and scenario, and what you see generally happening, either in that kind of a use case or others that you think are important.
Absolutely. So when we read and hear about AI in the media these days, a lot of what we see are about GPTs and chat and so on. It's the type of AI that drives your car, parks your car, chats with you, does your homework. In my view, the more impactful type of AI actually are those types of AIs that work behind the scenes. It's the type of AI that, in Cedric's words, toil behind the application and do all the background checks in a hundredth of a time that a human would take. So I'm at the financial services regulator these days, and I want a show of hands. How many of you have recently dealt with a mortgage agent or an insurance agent, or have dealt with some pensions, or have maybe dealt with a credit union? Well, this regulator has regulatory authority over all of these business sectors. And what used to happen is we would have humans conduct checks on hundreds of data points for license holders for mortgage, license agents, pension funds, credit unions, and there's a lot of very rigorous compliance and regulatory work that goes on. Not, glitzy, kind of boring, but extremely important for each and every one of us in this room. So where AI is good? AI is really good at replacing some of that grunt work in the background, right? For give you an example, a human used to go and Google the background of a licensed applicant. You would see the application form, there's a bunch of information, I then Google that. Imagine how many times you Google that for maybe hundreds of applicants every day. Now, the AI is doing all of that while you sleep, while the while the regulator is sleeping. The AI is doing all that work. That not very glorious, kind of boring work is now being handled by AI, and it's doing it better. It's doing it faster. Every night, it's processing over 1 million Google searches back from all these applications that would never have had been looked at by the human, because the human would go to page 5 of Google results and stopped. But we've said, go to page 20, okay, and read all the results, and apply all these algorithms to figure out, whether this person is pretending that he is having a license when he shouldn't have one. So, very, very exciting days for AI in going to the background, kind of invisible, toiling away. That's where I think
and consuming more information than a human could have consumed. One of my favorite use cases is in Singapore. The National University of Health system there in real time scores patient interactions with frontline medical staff and compares it to dozens of potential ailments and can spot markers that are predictive of cancer or kidney failure before they happen. Of course, there's interesting data challenges with that as well, but that's, I think, an example of in the background, something that's silent and maybe even more intelligent in some ways that the human could be, but then, of course, the decision happens with the human, which is back to the pilot question, right? Which is, as we're talking about this, Maurice, you're making me think of, okay, there must be things that your system and the AI that you're developing together could detect that maybe an ordinary trainer for a pilot might have missed, some sort of insight that might even be better than sort of manual inspection may have been. I wonder, I don't know. We haven't planned these questions, so I don't know. Is that there?
It's a human nature to, when we jump into the simulator or when we do a flight test or anything like this, we look at the last 3 training events. We look at the record of the 3 training events. But the reality of it is that candidate, that pilot that is applying to be a captain, for example, has been flying for 10, 20 years into that airline. It could be at Ryanair, or it could be at Air Canada, or Fiji Airways, whoever it is. And we never look at the training, the overall training thing. We don't even look at the recruitment side, where we have psychometric assessment of the candidates. We don't look at the learning style of the candidate. We don't look at anything at the moment. This tool allows us to actually take all of this and give us at time t0, when we're going to go for his upgrade as a captain, looking at all his weaknesses for the entire pass and actually really personalize the training for him. And instead of, if he's a great leader, as a great leader and teamwork, why giving him 50 hours of leadership and teamwork when really his situational awareness is where he needs to actually be trained, or if it's his landing skills or some very specific aspect of it. So that reduces the cost of training. So Airline loves this, obviously. And then the next part of it is the candidate is now in a position where he feels successful about going through it. The climb to go to the captain position is not, like when I become captain, it was like, oh my God, I'm becoming captain, I have to learn all those skills. But no, you actually accumulate those skills during your 7 years as a first officer, or 3 years, or whatever the time it takes you there. So that training event is personalized now, is dedicated to you, is attached to you, and then now you're in control of your training event. So the airline gains, the pilot gains, everybody's happy, and then it makes things a lot better for the passengers to actually come up with a captain that knows what he's going to do. So.
Yes, a nice feature of having a confidence in your pilot. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. So this is the panel. So you've said some really interesting things about what's happening today. One of the other things that I do is I'm the lead analyst for Warburg Pincus. We invest about $80 billion in enterprise software and AI. So tell me where we should put our money. What's coming up next? We've heard about agents. We've talked about XOps, the cool stuff that Dataiku is doing with LLM Mesh, generative AI, of course. What do you see as important? And I hate asking 3 or 4 or 5 years out because who knows, stuff is changing so fast the next year or two. What do you think are the big trends that are coming up, Maurice?
I believe that for AI to fully realize its potential in society and in the economy, we need to build trust in AI. We read a lot about what and how AI can make it so real, make it so believable that for the uninformed, you can fall for it very easily. Even for a very educated eye, you can look at something and say, I can't really tell if this is real or not. Now, for what I do at the regulator, it's very interesting because the AI is helping build public trust in regulatory and enforcement compliance. We are able to say to the public and to the regulated sectors that because the regulator is taking advantage of AI in a responsible way, the results of that enforcement and the results of that regulatory action is enhanced by AI. What the human cannot do, for example, check 50 pages of Google overnight while we're sleeping, we can now do. We can get the little AI agent to go off and, hey, you do this. When I come back, you give me a red dot, a green dot, or an orange dot. That's all I need to know. So that's beautiful. That's really powerful. But we're going through a cycle, just like any technology, I think, where, yeah, this is so powerful, but it's also very scary. It's also like, should I trust it? And I think that it's only over time, in the fullness of time, that society on a whole can really trust this technology. Because right now, there's a lot of parts about AI that me, even as a practitioner, would very much hesitate on. Would I trust my automated car to drive me onto the highway all the way to my destination while I sleep? I wouldn't do that today. But would I trust my AI to do some basic research and help me come up with 100 signals from Google about whether this person is risky or not, credit-wise, police-wise, security-wise? Yeah, I'll trust that. It's there.
Well, it's fascinating. It's a great example of knowing that the regulators are using it to build that trust. I gotta say, I love the Waymo, way safer than my 19-year-old daughter. I did take one in Arizona. Cedric, what do you see now? And actually, now here's another great example. Now, obviously, you're in the training part of the airline industry, but hearing that AI is such an important element of, or could be such an important element of making our pilots better, making them more, finding things that maybe other training processes might have missed. Where do you see this next few years going?
It's interesting for me because I'm actually I'm following you guys. You know, I'm using the technology that you guys are already using and already doing, predictive analytics and things like that, that in the aviation industry, we're so slow, we're so conservative. Safety is basically going on top of everything that we do, that we have to slow down all the time. It's actually doing what we're doing now with digital shift is a revolution for the aviation industry. So we're probably going to follow behind a little bit, quite a lot actually, but we're going to be what is interesting is this product didn't exist 4 months ago. Like literally didn't exist. It was an idea that came out of analyzing 2,000 resumes in Colombia for Avianca. 4 months ago, I met with Karen and Lisa, and oh yeah, we can probably do that. I'm like, oh, okay. And now it's a platform that's going to actually support generative AI, machine learning, and multiple other applications. It's got different level of product that's going to be attached to it. And who knows what the AI industry is going to come up in 6 months that we're going to be able to use with it. So for me, what I have to do is sit up, relax, we'll look at what's going on and pick up what you guys are actually developing and adapt this to the aviation industry. And adapted it quickly so it actually provides what the speaker was talking this morning, that gap. And provide this to my customers, the airline industry, and improve their training thing. So for me, it's not really, it's anticipating a little bit what's coming up, but at the end of the day, if it's not validated by you guys, I can't do much.
Well, and how it's fascinating that you dreamed that up as a pilot.
Yeah.
Thinking about a problem that you're trying to tackle with processing that data. Well, it's fantastic. So leave you with this question. So nobody knows where this is all going. Nobody knows where the future is, right? But how do you stay in the loop on this? There's Substacks that I just love to get these recommendations for all these people. What are they missing? There's also just too many things to read. Too many people with opinions, right? You take it from two different perspectives. One from an airline pilot, like how do you keep up to date with AI and see where things are going? And you, Maurice, from your point of view as a partner to firms like what Cedric is doing. So how do you keep up with
on a 10-hour flight? I go on the bunk and I start reading. So McKinsey report, then Dataiku report, and then I adopted the Gen Z approach of micro-learning. So, last flight I was doing is just and downloaded LangChain and see what LangChain can do and what LangChain cannot do.
The Gen Z approach to micro-learning.
Yeah, you just good. On 5-20
Not
minutes.
While you're flying the plane.
No, right? No, we go in the bunk and we sleep and we read things, and that's what we do. Otherwise, I mean, this is a way we have to actually ingest that technology for us because it's moving so quickly that by the time we learn this, there's already something else coming up. So we have to pick up those tidbits of information, and then, at the same time, we learn how to fly airplanes. So, in the 4 months we developed this product to renew my 350 and my 787 rating, I wouldn't have been able to do this without digital team and the work working behind them and Dataiku. And you end up into a situation where you have to actually export everything and trust the information that's coming from your engineering team as well.
Awesome. Maurice, how do you keep up to date?
I am a believer that to keep up with technology, I look elsewhere, actually. I actually spend time in my, my spare time, personal time. I read books that are not related to technology per se. So, for example, I read about history. I'm diving deep into modern Chinese history, and there is an aspect of it that is instructive. It tells the story about how human societies pick up on new technologies, how technologies that back in what I'm reading about the Opium Wars is about how technologies around communications, about steamboats, about guns, affect levels of human society in profound ways. And that gives me ideas in the present when the next newspaper comes up and talks about whatever the next Gen AI thing is. I kind of map that over to what history has taught us in the last 150, 250 years, and I find a lot of inspiration there. I find a lot of interesting stories about how politicians and leaders of government and leaders of society and communities reacted to technological change in history. And the good thing is that because it has happened, you know what the result was. And you can say, okay, they did this and made those decisions in those scenarios, and the result was X. And then I look at today, well, we have Gen AI, by many descriptions, is a profoundly impactful technology. Should we invest in it? Are we over-investing in it, as a society? Are we living up too much to the hype? Are we focusing on the wrong things? Should we trust it? Is it believable? What should I tell my kids about it? Well, I don't know what the answers are, but it's instructive when I look back at history to see, look at the Opium Wars, that's what happened.
Awesome. Well, very good. Thank you guys so much. Great insights. Wonderful application. If you haven't checked it out, it's out in the demo hall that these two gentlemen have put together. And thank you again for the sponsorship and all the great insights you gave us. Thank you.
Thank you.